welcome back to the Content Bite. Our aim as a podcast is to help writers of all kinds create a thriving business and a career that they love. I'm Rachel Smith, a journalist, copywriter, content producer, and the founder of Rachel's List, which is a jobs board and community for freelancers. I'm here with my co-host Lynn Testoni. Hi again, Lynn.
Hi again, Rach. My name is Lynn Testoni and I'm also a content creator, writer and journalist. And today's episode is all about the life and the daily workload of a magazine and a newspaper editor. And we've got a very special guest, Kerrie McCallum. Now, I've known Kerrie for many years, and she might talk about that later. And we're both thrilled that she cleared some time in her frantic schedule for us and our listeners. So I'm going to read a little bit about Kerrie so you get an idea of it. And we're cutting down her bio because it's huge. But Kerrie is the editorial director of the premium food and travel group at News Corp, and she's the editor-in-chief of Escape. So that involves overseeing the editorial direction of the travel network and is the editor-in-chief of Escape. And she's also responsible for Delicious, which is the leading premium food and lifestyle brand in the Australian market. And this involves looking at the brands across all platforms, including weekly and monthly print, digital and social, across the News Corp Metro network, including the Sunday Telegraph and the Sunday Herald Sun. She joined News Corp in 2012 as the editor-in-chief of Sunday Style and then began leading Delicious in September 2014. And she took on Escape in May 2020. Fabulous, Kerrie, right in the middle of a global pandemic.
I know. Can you believe it?
I know. And before News, she edited In Style and previously Shop to Your Drop. And unbelievably, she's also the mother of two, and she does quite a few charitable things, including Women in Hospitality, Thankful for Farmers, and the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. What a bio, Kerrie. I'm so excited because I have a never-ending toppling pile of Delicious magazines at home that are threatening to,
Me too. I can't lose any of them. That's, they're so beautiful. I'm glad to hear you've got a pile too.
Yeah, you almost think, oh, where is that recipe? I've got to go back and find it. And you just have an encyclopedic catalogue of recipes in my head. So congrats on, helming two such fantastic brands.
Thank you. I think the bio's long because I'm old and there's a lot of time, a lot of work. It all piles up, really.
It does.
But Lynn was my boss many years ago, gave me a big break on Elle magazine, and I was so excited. I cartwheeled down the hall. Oh. And the thing is, once someone's been your boss, they're always your boss. So I still defer to Lynn, even though it was many, many years ago. It's funny.
Many years ago. Way too much for us to remember, Kerrie. But
That's
yes,
so
and
true.
What a year this has been, such a ridiculous year, but leading hospitality brand and then a travel brand in the middle of a pandemic. How's it been?
Oh my goodness. I think it's probably been the hardest year of my working life, really. Although you have to temper that with thinking, well, I'm still working. So, a lot of the people that we were dealing with all the way through the year in both the hospitality and the travel sectors weren't working, didn't know when they'd work again, may have lost everything. So you kind of had to temper this manic work phase with the fact that other people had nothing. So, yeah, I'd say it's been hard, and also I'd probably say a hard time to enter travel just because, you're trying to help people navigate out of a difficult time. So, yeah, although it's hard also to complain about that portfolio, like, premium food and travel is, about
it's awesome.
as good. It's great. It's a great cachet of brands to look after, that's for sure.
I imagine while travel was sort of going down because nobody was getting on planes, the food side of things was going up because everyone was at home cooking. But you've obviously been in editorial for so many years. And apart from the year that we've had, I mean, how has the role of an editor changed, say, in the past 5 years and evolved?
It literally changes week to week. It changes so much, so often, so fast that the only way you could be an editor now is that you're incredibly flexible and fast and resilient and pretty curious. I think you just want to keep learning. I think if you're going to be stuck in your ways, you wouldn't still be around. I'd say there's elements of it that have changed, very dramatically and continue changing. And then there's other elements that remain the same. You know, the way, whether you know, in the original days when I became an editor, you really only had one thing to look after, and that was your print product and that one deadline. But then now, you know, you have so many more things to look after. However, you still have to think of your product like a brand, and how can you grow that brand? And I was taught early on to think of my product as a brand. So things that I learned early on, even though it was a different era, still remain with me, I guess, to this day.
I know that, you know, your role is, as well as doing, you know, managing the editorial, being the face of the brands as well. So how does that look? You know, what's a typical day look like for you?
Well, there is no typical day, which is probably why I'm still doing this, I think, because you never can get bored. I really don't even know what I'm doing one day to the next, which horrifies my mother. But I can't look too forward, because otherwise I feel overwhelmed if I look at my diary too far ahead. So I am, though, very organized, I guess. I don't struggle. I can kind of cope with a lot at once. So I think that's one way I've been able to get through. And then, you know, obviously, there is a lot of sort of, you know, interfacing things where you're representing the brand, or you're speaking, or you're talking, or you're presenting, and so on. So I think having a great team around you at work, so that, you know, they're able to pick up in their specialty areas and keep going while you may be elsewhere. I think having a great team is critical, which I have on both the travel and the food side, like Delicious and Escape. And having people around you that sort of supplement your weaknesses. So where I'm not strong, I make sure I've got people that are very good. And then, getting help wherever I can at home. I've had the same nanny for, well, she's more like a babysitter now, but for 13 years since I had my first child. So my family don't live nearby, so I just get her, I get help whenever I can.
Yes.
You know, if I get stuck, I ask for help, really.
Yeah.
Because there'd be a lot of late nights, wouldn't there, with all that events and
there
hospitality?
are. However, I've always tried to be, you know, quite strict and only do two things for work at night. Sometimes that becomes 3. Sometimes at very busy periods, like in November, it might be 4, but I'm pretty strict around just taking on 2 things a night, and then other people on the team, you know, can go in your place. So we try to share the load, I guess, at night, and it doesn't always have to be me. It can be.
Oh, good.
I know from Delicious that you used to do a lot of dinners, because I used to look and see who was on the dinner and stuff like that. Can I just ask, have you got every chef in Australia on speed dial?
Yes, and you know what is great about that, coming from a world where I was more on women's or fashion titles, you had to go through agents and everything like that, and it got quite convoluted and complicated and long process. Now it's just, you call a chef and they're like, yeah, okay. and then they tell you what you're doing wrong. They're like, you need to do this on this page, and what are you thinking about? So it's interesting. They're very engaged, almost like they're like a collective of co-editors, I would say. They're very involved in the product of Delicious, and they tell me all the time what I should and shouldn't be doing. And so,
yay, that's fun.
Yeah, but they're a great bunch of people, actually, that you can just interact with for advice or inspiration. They're really critical to the Delicious brand, because the readers love them. They love to get to know them. They love to meet them. They love to hear from them. So they're having that breadth of opinions, and the breadth of, I guess, the family of contributors with different ideas really makes Delicious what it is. It's sort of the sum of a lot of parts.
Because magazines, as you say, well, not really a magazine, it's a brand. They're all multi-platform now, aren't they? So that means social is a big part of it, as well as like digital platforms and the print stuff. Is that exhausting, keeping across the multiple things?
Yeah, I mean, it is tiring, but then I'm sort of obsessed with content. So like, I am always consuming all the time. Yeah, like I'm really interested in everything at any time. So it doesn't sometimes really feel necessarily like work. But I would say, well, what's interesting now and what's really come to the fore and become, you know, a critical part of our content process now is even video. You know, we'd be doing millions of video views a week. You know, that's become, you know, that's almost more dominant than anything now, is video. So you've always got some new content demand or challenge to learn, and a new opportunity to reach a new audience, and you're always learning. So I find it interesting rather than exhausting. Of course, you get tired, like any working mum gets tired, I think. Life, but it's always stimulating. And where I work in my company, you've just got access to all these big brain people who are very data driven. Like if you look at the Food Network where I work, you're interfacing with 80 million data points a day, so you get this wealth of consumer knowledge that you never necessarily had with print. Even though I still love the print side of the business as well. There's a different passion points there, but you kind of get this immediate knowledge of people every day that can really hone what you do and why you do it, and makes you much more accountable, which was very scary at first, I think, but now
is it exciting?
Yeah. It's exciting. And there's no more like there was a lot of doing it by gut feel, which I definitely overlay gut feel on things, but you can't just get away with saying it's the vibe anymore. It's, no, the data is definitely saying that it's not the vibe. And if it doesn't work, you just stop it straight away and you go, oh, well, nothing lost. We'll do it this way. We'll try something else. So you and your team are always learning.
Yeah.
Well, we know that obviously that Escape and Delicious are such strong brands. You must get loads of pitches, perhaps not so much this year for Escape, but I'm sure that will be coming back. Do you have like very tight-knit groups of freelancers that you farm work out to, or do you still take pitches?
I'll look a bit of both. I think certainly with travel, you get obviously there's a lot of people pitching all the time. It is hard, yes, to break in, but not impossible. I think you tend to use people and trust because you're just time poor and you know that someone's going to deliver what you need with minimal reworking to the brief, to the word count, and to the deadline. You tend to get good at using the people will deliver for you. However, certainly we do like to mix it up and, introduce new people into the mix. Just with Escape, for example, when we refreshed or redesigned recently, we sort of introduced a news and views page, which is an opinion column. So we really try to mix that up and, people pitch quite quirky ideas for that. So I think you can break in, yes, but you need to have a really good idea and you need to have really considered what the brand needs and where your story might fit. There's nothing worse than someone saying, oh, I'm available for stories, for example.
Yep.
That's not, I can't respond to that. But if it's something so compelling that you've really considered and thought about why something would work where, you might get someone's attention. And then you also, obviously print is finite, but digital is endless, and you may just hit someone at the right time with something they need.
Well, in your opinion as an editor, are you looking these days not just for that great idea, but also a freelancer that has a really strong social presence?
Look, it certainly helps, but it's not essential. I mean, we definitely work with people that have strong social followings because it's exposing your brand to their audiences and vice versa. So it's a mutually beneficial thing, and it's important because social drives so many of your digital referrals, particularly for a brand like Delicious, where a lot of our online traffic will come from social referrals. So it's an important thing. However, there's equally amazing writers that we work with that have quite a low profile on social media. So it's a bit of both, I'd say. I don't think it's essential but you'd have to offer something else if you're not offering a great social following. And when I say great social following, it needs to be legitimate, authentic, credible person that knows what they're talking about and can write really well for your brand. It's not just the following that we're after. We're after the authenticity of the person as well.
So no social photos of somebody drunk falling over a banana lounge.
One thing I often want to ask, and this is to horrify our listeners, how many emails do you get a day? Because I think people underestimate how besieged you could be.
I mean, I don't know, like you could probably get thousands a day, really. But I'm quite efficient on email. I don't like to get away from me. Sometimes it does, but I try not to let it get away from me. But I used to feel terrible about not responding to everybody, but I've just realized I can't. But I try to look at everything, but then I might just click off if I know I can't use that. Otherwise, I forwarded it on. I might not reply, but I might forward it on to someone if I think that they should pursue that. Like I quite often do that with pictures.
Yeah.
I might forward it onto digital or news or different brands.
That makes sense, because I think it must be hard with such prestige brands. Everyone wants to work for them, and sometimes there's a lot of people who maybe aren't crafting intelligent pitches to you. So it must be hard to separate the good ones from the bad, because of the quantity.
And I totally, I've been a freelancer. I understand, you've just got to put it out there. And it's hard sometimes when people don't reply. And I feel that, like it's just, if someone hasn't replied, it doesn't mean they haven't forwarded it on to someone else. But I think certainly if you've crafted something concise, sharp, that fills a particular need for a brand, and what the brand's audience is intimately, and you've thought about that, and you've got my name right, haven't called me someone else.
Does that happen?
Yes, terrible, or the wrong publication. So but I certainly look at stuff, and I try to look at everything. And I love it. I actually love a good pitch, actually. And I'll take it if I can, or I've got the money or the time or the space, for sure.
If we can just speak about money for a second. I mean, you have watched, like all of us, magazines falling over all over the place, and Delicious is such a success story. Are you still having that tightening with budgets, or have you got a bit more leeway?
Yeah, look, budgets are always sort of under scrutiny. However, I haven't had budget taken away from me, but what I've been asked to do is use it more strategically. So I've had to shift, for example, budget from print over the years into video. And there are so many strategic reasons for that. So it's about, how can you ensure that the print product isn't compromised and you can still offer the same quality, but move some of that money into digital or video and so on. So certainly you're not getting any extra money, and you've got to be really smart with how you spend your money. Yeah, but I wouldn't say I've still got a strong, healthy, I think, team. They work very hard and they cover a lot of ground, but I've been fortunate that it's not so much about taking money away from me. If I meet budget, if I meet my target, if I meet my revenue, and
my goodness,
my brand is doing well, they are okay. I think it's, if you're not, that's when you got to watch out.
What do you think is your key difference at Delicious? Why are you still there when all the others are falling over?
Look, I think a few things. One, it was and always has been a very healthy brand with a very loyal audience. However, I think being part of the broader news network, like we are, has given us this extraordinary ability to scale out strategically. We were very late to the party launching a site. We were the last. But when we did launch it, we did it with a lot of rigor, and we debuted at number 1. And we've just grown from there. We have incredible social networks. We were first to market with video. We think carefully about sub-brands that we can build out and why. And there's a lot of rigor again and logic around that. And it's all done strategically with the broader network. And you've got access to the Metro mastheads, the Sunday mastheads, the Prestige network. And you find people at news are incredibly collaborative, particularly with a brand like Delicious or Escape, which they love. Our team makes sure that we're easy and collaborative to work with, and really using the brains and the power of the network to build our brand out has made us scale out beyond being a print product. The print product's the pinnacle of it, and it's still a beautiful and loved and stable and highly subscribed experience, but there's so many other elements to the brand that are ensuring we grow and not decline, really.
How fantastic. Oh, Kerrie, thank you so much for coming on the Content Bite. We're so stoked to hear about your journey and to talk about these brands that I know Lynn and I both love, as well as all our listeners. So thank you. I know you're a very time poor lady, so we're not going to take up more of your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
What's your best tip? If you leave us with your favourite tip or the thing that you've learned? Oh no, I'll put you on the spot.
The thing I've learned, expect the unexpected and roll with it.
Love it. Love it.
Like that question. Oh, thank you, Kerrie. That brings us to the end of the show. But thank you to everyone listening. And I know this is going to be one of our most popular episodes.
It will.
So, yes. If you like the show, don't forget to leave a rating or review. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks, Kerrie.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.